want to start with something real today. Not a sales pitch, not some miracle cure you've never heard of, just the truth. And a few vegetables sitting in the produce aisle of your local grocery store right now. If you're a man over 60, I want you to know something before we go any further. What you've been feeling, that heaviness in the morning, that quiet sense that something inside you has gone dim. The way you used to wake up with energy in your body and a certain kind of energy, and now you just don't. I want you to know that's not just aging. That's not just the way it is now. In over 25 years of practicing medicine, I have sat across from hundreds of men your age, and I can tell you with absolute certainty that feeling is reversible. Not completely. I'm not going to stand here and tell you you'll feel like you did at 25. That's not honest, and you deserve honesty. But better than last month. Better than last year? Absolutely. And sometimes a whole lot better. That's what today is about. I'm Dr. Chloe Bennett, and I've spent more than 2.5 decades working with men in their 60s, 70s, and beyond. What I've learned, what keeps showing up in my office over and over again, is that the biggest changes don't come from prescriptions. They come from what's on your plate. 3 vegetables specifically: beets, broccoli, and chives. And when you eat them in the right way at the right times of day, they work together like nothing else I've seen in clinical practice. But before I get into all that, I want to address something head on. Because I know some of you watching this right now are thinking, okay, doc, but my problem isn't just about getting it up. My problem is more complicated than that. Maybe things have cooled off between you and your wife. Maybe the desire's there, but the follow-through isn't what it used to be. Maybe you've gotten so used to avoiding the whole subject that you and your partner just don't talk about it anymore. I hear you. I really do. And we're going to get into all of that today. Not just the physical mechanics, but the whole picture. Because in my experience, when a man's vitality comes back, it doesn't just change his body. It changes his marriage. It changes how he feels getting out of bed in the morning. It changes the look on his wife's face when she looks at him. That's the real goal here, not a number on a test result. A life that feels worth living fully. Okay, let's get into it. The first vegetable is beets. I want to tell you about a patient of mine. I'll call him Robert. He was 66 years old, a retired contractor out of Phoenix, Arizona. Big guy, hands like baseball mitts from decades of working construction in the desert heat. His wife Linda dragged him into my office because she was worried about him. He wasn't himself, she said. He'd gotten quiet, withdrawn. He'd stopped suggesting date nights, stopped reaching for her hand on the couch the way he used to. When I finally got Robert alone in the exam room, he looked at the floor for a good 30 seconds before he said anything. Then he said, "Doc, it's like the lights are on, but nobody's home, you know what I mean?" I knew exactly what he meant. Robert wasn't depressed. His blood work was decent for his age. But his circulation? That was a different story. The blood flow to certain areas had slowed dramatically, which is incredibly common in men over 60, especially men who spent decades doing physically demanding work. Men who maybe didn't eat great through their 40s and 50s. Men whose vascular system has just quietly been narrowing over the years without anyone saying a word about it. I told Robert I wanted him to try something simple before we talked about anything else. Every morning, I said, blend half a cup of cooked beets with a little water and a squeeze of lemon. Drink it like juice, that's it. 1 cup, every morning. He looked at me like I'd lost my mind. But here's the science. And I want you to actually understand this because it matters. Beets are loaded with dietary nitrates. When those nitrates enter your body, they convert to nitric oxide. And nitric oxide is basically your blood vessel's best friend. It relaxes the vessel walls, widens them, and allows blood to flow more freely through the body, including to areas that need that blood flow for sexual response. This isn't folk medicine. This is well-documented physiology. Robert tried it. He called me about a week and a half later. "Doc," he said, "I don't know what's in that beet juice, but something shifted." He told me his legs felt lighter. He was sleeping better. And then he paused and said, "Linda noticed too. She said, I seem like I'm back." He came in for a follow-up 2 weeks after that. He was sitting up straighter. He shook my hand differently. He said, "That stuff worked better than the pills my buddy takes." Now, if you can't do the juice every morning, that's totally fine. Roasted beets on a salad, beet slices with a little olive oil and sea salt. Canned beets work in a pinch, though fresh or roasted are better. The goal is consistency, not perfection. A little lemon or citrus with your beets increases absorption. And if you pair them with leafy greens, the effect is even stronger. If your body has been feeling blocked, sluggish, unresponsive, like the engine won't turn over, the blood vessels are the first thing to address. That's where beets come in. Open the pipes first. Everything else works better after that. Now, once the blood is flowing again, some men feel a real difference right away. But others, and this is very common, notice that even with better circulation, something is still missing. The drive, the emotional charge, that inner fire that used to make you pursue your wife across the kitchen just because she was standing there looking good. That's usually a hormone issue, specifically testosterone. Here's something most people don't realize. Testosterone doesn't just disappear as men age. A lot of what happens is that the ratio shifts. Estrogen, yes, men have estrogen too, starts to dominate more. And the testosterone that's still being produced gets partially blocked or converted. The result is that flat feeling, that emotional numbness, that sense that, as one of my patients put it, I'm living life through a layer of glass. That patient was a 69-year-old retired high school principal from right outside of Nashville, Tennessee. I'll call him James. He was polished, articulate, came in wearing a tucked-in shirt with a crease down the sleeves, but his eyes were tired. He sat down and said, "Dr. Bennett, I've got everything I was supposed to want. House is paid off. Kids are good. Wife is wonderful. I just can't feel any of it." His testosterone wasn't devastatingly low, but the balance was off. And rather than going straight to hormone replacement therapy, which has its place but isn't always the first answer, I recommended we try broccoli. He blinked. "Broccoli?" "Broccoli," I said. "Here's why. Broccoli contains a compound called indole-3-carbinol. When you eat it, especially when it's lightly cooked rather than raw or overcooked, this compound helps your liver metabolize excess estrogen more efficiently. Less estrogen dominance means testosterone can do its job more effectively. You're not adding testosterone. You're clearing the path so what you already have can actually work. I told James to eat 1 cup of steamed broccoli at lunch 5 days a week. Lightly steamed, not boiled to mush, not raw. About 1.5 minutes in boiling water, then drain it immediately. Toss it with olive oil and a little minced garlic, which itself has compounds that support testosterone production. That's it. Simple as a side dish at Applebee's. About 10 days later, James sent me a patient portal message. It said, "I don't know how to describe this except to say that I feel like the volume got turned back up. I woke up this morning and actually wanted to go for a walk, and when my wife was getting ready for church, I noticed her in a way I haven't in a while." His wife called the office separately, just to say thank you. She didn't even know what he'd changed. She just knew her husband had come back. That's the thing nobody talks about. When a man's hormones rebalance, it doesn't just affect him. It ripples out into the marriage, into the household. The wife who's been feeling invisible for years suddenly feels seen again. The conversations that went shallow get deep again. That's not nothing. That's everything. For broccoli to work, consistency is key. Every day won't happen. That's fine. 5 days a week, lunchtime, the way I described. Give it 2 weeks before you judge it, and if you can't stand broccoli on its own, mix it into a stir fry. Add it to eggs in the morning. Throw it in a soup. Just get it in your body regularly. So now you've got better blood flow from the beets. You've got better hormonal balance from the broccoli. But there's a third piece. And this is the one that most men don't think about until I bring it up. You can have the plumbing working and the hormones in better shape and still run out of steam. Mid-experience, the spirit is willing, but the body just stops. It's like having a car with good tires and a full tank of gas, but a weak battery. Everything else is ready to go and the engine just sputters out. That's what chives address. And I know, chives, the little green things on your baked potato at Outback Steakhouse. Bear with me. Chives have been used for centuries in traditional medicine as what some cultures call a young herb, something that generates heat, sustains energy, and supports endurance from the inside out. Modern nutrition backs this up. Chives are rich in sulfur compounds and arginine, an amino acid that stimulates peripheral blood flow and helps sustain physiological response over time. They also have a gentle warming effect on the body's core temperature, which supports sustained physical energy in a way that most people just aren't aware of. My patient, I'll call him Gary, was 72, retired electrician from just outside of Columbus, Ohio. Big personality, loud laugh, the kind of guy who has a nickname for everyone. But he came in with a problem he described with characteristic bluntness. "Doc," he said, "the spirit's willing. I get going fine. But somewhere in the middle, the lights just cut out on me. I feel like a phone that drops from 40% to zero with no warning." His wife had actually come with him. She sat in the corner of the exam room quietly until he finished, and then she said, very gently, "I just want him back. That's all. We've been married 46 years and I miss him." I want you to sit with that for a second because I think a lot of couples watching this are carrying exactly that weight. It's not about performance for performance's sake. It's about connection. It's about two people who've built a life together wanting to still reach for each other. That matters. That's worth fighting for. I told Gary to add a small handful of fresh or lightly cooked chives to his dinner 3 to 4 nights a week. The best preparation is sautéed briefly in a little sesame oil or butter with eggs. The fat helps with absorption of the sulfur compounds. Keep the cooking time short, 2 to 3 minutes max. You can also scatter them raw over soup or a baked potato. They don't need to be cooked to be effective. Within 5 days, Gary came back in and said, and I'm paraphrasing here because this is a PG-13 show, that things had changed significantly. "I don't cut out anymore," he said. His wife, sitting in the same chair in the corner, was smiling. Now here's the part I really want you to take away, because this is where everything comes together. Beets, broccoli, and chives aren't just 3 random vegetables. They work on 3 different but connected systems. The beets open the vascular system, the pipes. The broccoli balances the hormonal system, the fuel mixture. The chives sustain the energy system, the battery. And when you time them across your day, it's beets in the morning, broccoli at lunch, chives at dinner, you're essentially running a full day protocol that keeps all 3 systems supported simultaneously. Think of it like this. You wouldn't run your HVAC system without checking the airflow, the thermostat, and the power supply separately. Your body is the same. You can't fix one thing and expect the whole system to transform. But when you address all 3 in sequence over the course of a single day, the compounding effect is real. Here's your daily routine, simple as I can make it. Morning. Blend half a cup of roasted or steamed beets with water and a squeeze of lemon. Drink it while your coffee's brewing. If you hate the taste, add half an apple or a little ginger. Give it a week before you decide you hate it. Lunch. 1 cup of lightly steamed broccoli, about 90 seconds in boiling water, drained immediately. Toss it with olive oil and garlic. Eat it as a side. You don't need to change your whole lunch, just add this to it. Dinner. A small handful of fresh or sautéed chives with whatever you're already eating. Mix them into scrambled eggs. Scatter them on soup. Cook them briefly with a little butter. 2 to 3 minutes, that's all. That's the whole protocol. No supplements, no prescriptions. No powder from some guy on Instagram. Just 3 real foods, timed across your day, consistent over 2 weeks. Now I need to say something directly to the men watching this who've been frustrated not just with their bodies, but with their marriages, who feel like they've been disappointing their wife, who have started avoiding closeness because it's easier to avoid it than to face what used to be there and isn't anymore. I want to speak to that directly because avoiding it is exactly the wrong move. When physical vitality starts to come back, even a little, the instinct for most men is to wait until it's back to normal before engaging with their wife again. Don't do that. The reconnection itself is part of the healing. A hand on her shoulder, sitting close on the couch. A long conversation after dinner instead of retreating to the TV. These things signal to your nervous system that intimacy is safe, that it's welcome, and that you're still a man who chooses to show up for his partner. Your body responds to that signal. It's not just psychological, there's real neurochemistry involved. One of my patients, I'll call him Dennis, 74, retired teacher from Tucson, started this 3-vegetable routine at his wife's encouragement. She'd read something online and brought it to him. He was skeptical, agreed to try it, mostly just to make her happy. 6 weeks later, he came in for a different appointment entirely, and on his way out, he stopped at the door and turned around. "Doc," he said, "I want you to know we went to Santa Fe last weekend. First trip we'd taken alone in 4 years, and it was..." He stopped. It was like being married again, the real way. His wife emailed the office the following week. She said she felt like she had her partner back. Not just physically, fully. That is the goal. Not a number, not a benchmark. A marriage that still has heat in it. A body that still shows up. A man who still feels like himself. And I want to push back against something that gets said too often. This idea that after 60 or 65 or 70, the desire for closeness and physical connection is somehow embarrassing. That you should have aged out of wanting that. That it's undignified or inappropriate to still care about this. That is nonsense. Complete nonsense. The desire for connection, physical, emotional, intimate connection, is one of the most fundamentally human experiences there is. It doesn't have an expiration date. And men who are 70, 75, 80 years old, who still want to feel vital and connected to their partners, aren't being ridiculous, they're being fully, authentically alive. We've been conditioned to go quiet about this, to just accept the decline and not say anything because that's what happens. But that silence costs people. It costs marriages. It costs men their sense of self. And there is no good reason to accept it when there are real, evidence-based whole food solutions sitting in the produce section of your nearest Harris Teeter or Kroger. You're not broken. You're not done. You just need the right inputs. Let me recap one more time so it sticks. Beets every morning, half a cup blended with water and lemon. Start the day by opening the vascular system. Broccoli every lunch. 1 cup, lightly steamed 90 seconds. Olive oil and garlic. Restore the hormonal balance that makes you feel like yourself. Chives every dinner, a small handful, sautéed briefly with eggs or scattered fresh on whatever you're eating. Sustain the energy you need all the way through. Do this for 2 weeks straight, not perfectly, consistently. If you miss a day, pick back up the next morning. Don't make it complicated. By day 5, most of my patients report feeling a physical difference. By day 10, the emotional shift starts showing up. Better mood, more motivation, that quiet sense of wanting to engage with life again. By the end of 2 weeks, the men who were avoiding their wives have typically started reaching back toward them. Not because I told them to, because the body, when it starts to feel like itself again, naturally moves toward connection. That's how we're designed. And that design doesn't stop working just because you're older. It just needs the right support. I've been doing this for over 25 years. I've seen a lot of things come and go, trends, supplements, therapies that looked promising and didn't pan out. What I keep coming back to is this. The body is remarkably good at healing itself when you stop getting in its way and start giving it what it actually needs. Beets, broccoli, chives, morning, lunch, dinner, 2 weeks. You owe it to yourself to find out what's actually still possible. And you owe it to the person who's been next to you all these years. Who would give anything to have the real you back at the dinner table and in the car on a long drive and reaching for her hand in the dark. That man is still in there. I've seen it more times than I can count. Give him the chance to come back.